Back in the day, there was an event at the Pro Bowl called the NFL's Fastest Man Competition. It was a short race between 4 selected players to try and decide who was the fastest player at the Pro Bowl. This event had been going on for decades, and it was a fan favorite. Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned foot race?
They're going to have one heat, and may the best man run fast.
And they're off.
But after 2007, the NFL decided to give up this tradition. As far as why they decided to end it, I'm not entirely sure. Even though I know it could spice up the lackluster Pro Bowl that we witness every year, this summer we're getting a bit of justice. An event will be held by a handful of players to try and help decide who the fastest player is. It's going to be a tournament style setting, separated into 8 offensive and 8 defensive players. This is exciting considering that Ted Ginn Jr. just offered a $10,000 bet to anyone who wanted to challenge him to a race. But even with this tournament happening soon, it only includes 16 players, which Tyreek Hill isn't one of them. And plus, there has been so many guys over the NFL's history that could take claim to the league's fastest player. So I decided to look at the numbers of a few separate races to try and decide who is the fastest man the NFL has ever seen. But first, this video is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes tickets from all across the web and puts them into one area, making buying simple. They're rated on a scale from 1 to 100, so you know you're getting a good deal. Plus, if you haven't yet, use my promo code KTO for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to SeatGeek for the sponsor. Now let's get back to the video. The 40-yard dash is a test of how quick you can accelerate to your top-end speed. John Ross has the current title for the fastest 40-yard combine at 4.22. But here's the thing, we have a handful of players who can challenge this. Number 1, Tyreek Hill is a freak. He ran a 4.26 in college. If he would have been invited to the combine, he may have broken 4.22. Number 2, Darrell Green is a story of his own. The man kept Tootsie Rolls in his socks during games. Also, he ran a 4.43. When he was 50, they called him the ageless wonder since he still played defensive back in the NFL into his 40s. As far as a legitimate 40 in his athletic prime, reportedly, Darrell Green recorded a time of 4.09 at the Redskins training camp in 1986. Now, that sounds far-fetched. And it may be. Green claimed himself that the fastest he ever ran was 4.15, but even that's questionable since we have no official proof. Number 4, Bo Jackson is, well, a remarkable story about possibly the greatest athlete of all time. The problem with that is how much storytelling and lore-like status that this has achieved him. According to reports, in ESPN 30 for 30, and Bo himself, he either ran a 4.13 or 4.12 at his college pro day. This was also done in the fashion of him apparently being late for track practice, asking for the exit door to be open so when he finished the race, he wouldn't have to slow down so he could just keep on running at track practice. He didn't even know the time he had ran until after track practice that day. It was like it was straight out of a movie. The last 4 guys on this list have a claim to a 4.2 and even possibly a 4.140. Their play on the field suggests that they could be right, but we'll never know. The thing is, the 40 isn't necessarily the greatest test of speed. Due to how short it is, it demands a race format that is different than, let's say, a 100 meter. For one, it requires what sprinters call fast turnover. Elite level guys are turning their legs faster than anyone. The purpose of this is to build their acceleration and power to get as close to their top end speed in as little steps. The best sprinters in the world can only maintain their top end speed for 20 to 30 meters before they start to decelerate. So in the 40, you want to get to that speed as soon as possible. But not all guys are built like this. Julio is a burner in the open field once he gets rolling. But if you notice in this morph of Julio, Odell, and John Ross's 40s, you can see that when John Ross is fully up and sprinting, Julio is still driving his legs for maximum power. Some guys, due to their smaller stature, have the benefit of better acceleration. Not all athletes build their power like this.
Leonard Fournette, and Fournette is off. And here is Leonard Fournette, and he'll score.
18 consecutive runs, and this one made all the way. Fournette to the house. He's chased by Davis. And Leonard Fournette.
Leonard Fournette is the classic example of someone who proves that the 40 isn't the greatest test of pure speed. On this 90-yard touchdown during his rookie season, while pulling away from Sean Davis, a guy with a faster 40 and 25 pounds lighter, Fournette hit a peak speed of just over 22 miles per hour. And just for context, that was the fastest speed clocked by any ball carrier that season. That's because through his power, he built up his speed for 20 to 30 yards. This would equate to a much slower 40. Yet, in 100, this would be perfect. Fournette ran a 10.6 100-meter dash in high school, which, for his size, is absolutely terrifying. But when we're talking about 100-meter, Leonard Fournette doesn't match up with the fastest ever. Here's a list of the fastest 100-meter times ever by NFL players. Now, making this video, I realized something. To most of you, these numbers have no context. If you're not a track person or have ever paid attention to it, you would have no idea what these mean. So let me try and give you a visual. The average time for a senior in high school who ran 100-meter on varsity track was a 12.1. I was a state champion in the 100 and earned a scholarship to a low-level Division I university with a time of 10.68. Coincidentally, the same time as Leonard Fournette. The scary thing was he outweighed me by about 60 pounds. To make the US Olympic team in 2020, the minimum time you have to run is a 10.05. Only 8 Division I sprinters have reached that mark this year. At the 2016 Olympics, here are the results of the 100-meter final. 6 out of the 8 sprinters broke 10 seconds, with Usain Bolt winning in a time of 9.81. This is the difference between Usain Bolt and a guy running 10.06. The crazy part is this was another 0.23 off of Usain Bolt's world record, which puts him more like here. So, now that we have some context, let's go back and look at the list of NFL players. Tyreek Hill is a much better 200-meter runner, but he still holds his own here. Darrell Green also makes another appearance, proving his overall speed was world class. And at the top, we have Jim Hines, who you may recognize from the video I made about him. He wasn't exactly the greatest football player in the world, but he was one heck of a sprinter. Bob Hayes had a time of 10.06 in 1964. This was ran in the Olympic final, which he took gold. And then I saw that this was ran on a cinder track. While researching this video, I didn't even know what a cinder track was, so I looked into it. A cinder track is a type of racetrack, generally purposed for athletics or horse racing, whose surface is composed of cinders. Cinders? Oh, you mean this? This man ran a 10.06 on what looks like a dirt track. And then when I started reading more into Bob Hayes, it made me realize I may have found the fastest player in NFL history. Let me explain. Bob Hayes described the track conditions as a badly chewed up cinder track in his autobiography. Compare this to modern Mondo tracks or even all condition tracks that they started using after the 64 games, and it's not even close. You would definitely run slower. And apparently, he was running in borrowed spikes because he had left one of his shoes under his bed back home and didn't realize until he got to the Olympics. If you consider all the factors, crappy blocks, track conditions, the shoe situation, and modern training methods, who knows how fast this dude could have been. Apparently, he never lost a 100-yard or 100-meter dash. He set the world record for the 100-yard dash and 60-yard dash in college. And due to his dominance at Florida A&M, he was selected to represent the United States at the 64 games. The president of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson, had to call his college football coach asking to give Bob Hayes time off to recover for the games. Within a few days of him taking gold in the 100-meter, he anchored the US Olympic 4x100-meter relay in a come-from-behind victory. Some still recognize this as the fastest relay leg ever ran, being clocked in a hand time between 8.5 to 8.9 seconds. Not bad for a guy running in borrowed shoes. Also, this happened to be his final race ever, deciding at the ripe age of 21 to focus on playing football. He was drafted in the first round in 1964 by the Dallas Cowboys. At the time, this was considered a risk due to his unrefined skill set as a wide receiver. In his first 2 seasons, he would lead the league in receiving touchdowns. In one game specifically, he caught 9 passes for 246 yards, setting a Cowboys franchise record that would last for decades. He was so fast, players just simply couldn't keep up with them, and many people credit him for the creation of zone defense. Bob Hayes literally changed the game.